Welcome to the FullyCrypto podcast.
Hello and welcome once again to the FullyCrypto podcast, your home of quality cryptocurrency and blockchain news, opinion, analysis, and more. My name is Mark Hunter, and it's that time of the week again where $69 million, where we take a look at what's been going on in the crazy world of crypto in the past 7 days. Yeah, I know, but there's other stuff to get through first. So without further ado, let's something on our heads and grab something and... I'm sorry, just $69 million for a bunch of pixels that I can't even put on my wall. And then what about its carbon footprint? This whole NFT thing is just confusing, so I think I'm just going to laugh at it rather than try to understand it. Yeah, that'll work. We start last weekend with news that only an Ethereum miner would find distressing. Ethereum EIP 1559 is a go. If you're not aware of the importance of Ethereum EIP 1559, or what an EIP is, or what Ethereum is, or even what we're all doing here in the first place, then let me break it down for you. Currently, Ethereum is based on the traditional proof-of-work consensus mechanism, where miners are rewarded in ETH for processing Ethereum transactions. When the network gets congested, Ethereum users can pay more gas in the form of ETH to get their transactions bumped up the queue. This raises the floor for the entire Ethereum ecosystem, leaving us with what we have seen recently, double and even triple-digit Ethereum transaction fees. EIP 1559 aims to fix this and is a part of the overhaul of the entire Ethereum system that's taking place through Ethereum 2.0. EIP stands for Ethereum Improvement Protocol, and this particular EIP turns the concept of a traditional blockchain transaction on its head. Instead of users deciding how much to pay to get their transactions pushed through, an algorithmically decided base fee will be levied instead. We don't know actual figures yet, but this base fee is likely to be pennies as opposed to the hundreds of dollars some are forced to pay now. This development will bring an end to gas wars and will end the practice of wealthy users being able to force their transactions through first, while also all but eliminating the risk of transactions failing. Interestingly, this base fee does not go to miners. Instead, it's effectively burned, meaning that a little bit of ETH is sacrificed with every transaction processed on the network. This is crucial for two reasons. Firstly, because miners do not receive the base fee, they will be relying solely on tips paid by you, the user. This will massively reduce their income, which is why the majority of mining pools are against the move. Secondly, it has the potential to turn Ethereum into a deflationary asset. We don't have any figures yet as to the burn rate compared to the mining rate, but with the amount of ETH produced every year being massively cut with Ethereum 2.0 and the introduction of a token burn mechanism, we could well see Ethereum's market cap actually shrinking over time, which would do wonders for the price, at the same time as scaling effectively enough to fight off the competition and carry the DeFi movement onto its next stage of growth. Miners have been understandably furious with EIP 1559 and even set up online campaigns against it, but they were voted down at an Ethereum community call last week when EIP 1559 was formally approved for the next update in July, codenamed London. Some have predicted that the implementation of EIP 1559 could lead to the Ethereum market cap even eclipsing that of Bitcoin, and while it might not quite reach those levels, it could well solidify its number 2 spot, which is ironic because it could well end up shitting on the competition. Last weekend also saw the winner of 2020's World's Most Unsuitable Grandfather Award, John McAfee, face up to the reality of shilling shitcoin after shitcoin like they're chocolate poos dropping out of a novelty reindeer's bum. McAfee was famous in 2017 and 2018 for taking massive backhanders in return for promoting his Coin of the Week, all without a shred of admission that his tweets were paid for by the project in question. On more than one occasion, the team behind the project were the ones selling the top and then exit scamming with their ill-gotten gains, leaving holders wrecked. Or McAfee was given tokens as part of the deal, again dumping on late entrants. More than once, McAfee orchestrated pump and dumps without any knowledge of the projects in question, buying up bucket loads of a particular coin on the cheap and promoting it as his Coin of the Week, just to catch the inevitable ride to the moon. Charges were brought against McAfee in October, who has famously been on the run since fleeing Belize in 2012 after his neighbour was murdered. Interestingly, the Department of Justice took the Al Capone route and got McAfee on tax evasion, seeing as he hadn't filed a tax return since 1952. McAfee was arrested in Spain shortly after the charges were brought, suggesting that Spanish authorities knew which side their bread was buttered and favoured kowtowing to US authorities over continuing to be paid by McAfee to keep his location secret and not arrest him. McAfee therefore is still in Spain awaiting extradition, but late last week he found out about the charges he faces, along with his executive assistant, Jimmy Gale Jr. These are conspiracy to commit commodities and securities fraud, conspiracy to commit securities and touting fraud, wire fraud conspiracy and substantive wire fraud, and money laundering conspiracy offences stemming from two schemes relating to the fraudulent promotion of investors of cryptocurrencies qualifying under federal law as commodities or securities. This is entirely separate from the charges he also faces relating to his non-filing of tax returns, all of which could see him sentenced up to 45 years in prison if he's found guilty. Being 75 years old, one would think that McAfee would therefore die in prison, but there's every chance that the exotic cocktail of drugs he's pumped into his system in the last 50 years might just have preserved him like a vinegar-soaked conker, and he may well live to see his release from prison in 2066. What the Bitcoin price will be by this point, nobody knows, but it's a fair old bet that Johnny Boy will be cashing out some of his inevitably hidden holdings to fund the final centuries of his life. This week, we also learned something that in reality we already knew. Ripple's deal with Moneygram is dead. It's really dead. It's deader than a dog with a hole in its head being washed up on a beach. How do we know? Because Brad Garlinghouse told us. How do we also know? Because Moneygram told us. 2 weeks ago. The Moneygram Ripple deal was announced to great fanfare in mid-2019, with the XRP army proclaiming from the rooftops of their mental institutions that this was just the start, that now Moneygram was on board, Western Union and TransferWise would come crashing down the doors of Ripple HQ, begging to be brought on board, and that the world's banks would follow suit imminently. Except, as we now know, it wasn't quite like that. No, it was nothing like that. In fact, in one swift Adobe Acrobat digital signature, Ripple managed to not exactly reinvent finance, but reinvent the concept of a customer-client relationship instead. For, as we found out in early 2020, not only did Ripple pay MoneyGram $50 million up front for the X-Rapid service and the XRP token to be used on the MoneyGram platform, but they continued to pay them millions of dollars every quarter throughout 2019 and 2020. Think about that for a second. You're so desperate to make it seem that your project is fulfilling its unfeasibly lofty ambitions after years of failure that you're willing to pay tens of millions of dollars to the customer so they can make it look like they want to use your product. Moneygram, whose share price was tanking at the time of the deal, must have bitten their hand off. Of course, the SEC ruined Brad Garlinghouse's Christmas and began legal proceedings against the company on the basis that they illegally sold XRP tokens as securities, at which point Moneygram, as well as a bunch of exchanges, said nah and dumped Ripple quicker than one of those claw machines at the fair when it's right by the damn hatch and you think this is your time, but no, down it goes. Garlinghouse seriously claimed that there was no denying what Ripple and Moneygram had achieved together, and that both parties were committed to revisiting a deal in the future, which is about as solid a commitment as "thanks for coming, we'll let you know." Yeah, you haven't got the part, Brad. Finally this week, you might have noticed something that happened in the art world. Yes, Thursday saw a monumental event in the art world and an even more monumental one in the NFT world. Digital artist Beeple became the first artist to sell an NFT through a traditional auction house, as the auction for his piece, Every Days, the first 5,000 days, closed yesterday for a staggering $69 million. This puts Beeple in the top 3 most valuable living artists in the world, and shoves a rolled up sock into the mouths of those who think that NFTs are a passing fad. The issue of NFTs has, even before Beeple's record-setting auction, been a major talking point both in the mainstream media as well as in crypto circles. Both have had vastly different takes on it, of course, with most of the crypto crowd recognising that, while we may be in something of a bubble, the technology behind NFTs and the potential they have in an increasingly digital world is almost unfathomable. Mainstream media outlets, of course, had an entirely different take on the matter, with many harping on about the carbon footprint of each NFT, as if they've never watched a cat video on YouTube, which we might as well say uses the same amount of energy as the sale of an NFT, even though we, like them, have little evidence to back up our claims. This all boils down to a change of tack from the mainstream media outlets in recent weeks, who have taken to treading the well-worn and often debunked environmental argument against cryptocurrencies purely because they can no longer claim that Bitcoin and the like are Ponzi schemes or one-off bubbles that have no value, or any of 100 similar arguments they have had to abandon over time. The other thing that was noticeable about how NFTs were covered by news outlets was how misunderstood the entire concept was. Watching the reporters laughing and joking that you can't put an NFT artwork on your wall was deeply reminiscent of the 1990s when the internet was coming out and how it was treated back then. This clip of Bill Gates being interviewed by David Letterman in 1995 is a perfect example of how internet was treated back then.
Yeah, but it's easy to criticize something you don't fully understand, which is my position here.
Go ahead.
But I can remember a couple of months ago, there was like a big breakthrough announcement that on the internet or on some computer deal, they were going to broadcast a baseball game. You could listen to a baseball game on your computer. And I just thought to myself, does radio ring a bell? You know what I
mean? There's a difference.
There is a difference.
It's not a huge difference.
What is the difference?
But you can listen to the baseball game whenever you want.
All right.
Too.
Oh, I see. So it's stored in one of your memory deals,
Exactly.
and then you can come
That's
back
the
a year
RAM
later.
thing you talked about earlier.
Yeah. Do tape recorders ring a bell?
This attitude is so similar to how NFTs are being treated today, and yet if people only took the time to research NFTs and consider the possibilities of what they could offer, much like the internet in the early 1990s, then they might realise there is more to them than some LeBron James top shot and something that I can't hang on my wall. Idiots. That's it for this episode of the FullyCrypto podcast. You can like and subscribe if you want, doesn't bother me in the slightest. I don't care. I mean, do it, don't do it. Tell people about the FullyCrypto podcast, don't tell people about the FullyCrypto podcast. Give us money, don't give us money. Don't care either way. Only kidding. Like, subscribe, and tell people about us, or I'll send the boys round to doing your goldfish and we'll take photos and sell them as NFTs. Got it? Thanks for listening, have a great weekend, and I'll speak to you soon. 60